And I would like to call to order the August 5th, 2008 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. May we have the roll call, please?
Agency members: Raymond.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver. Yusefian. Chairman Najarian.
Here. May we have your report?
The agenda for the August 5th, 2008 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, July 31, 2008 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. We do not have any minutes to approve. Let's move to the next item.
Next item is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the Redevelopment Agency may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. And the matter may be referred to staff through the Executive Director for an investigation and a report.
Thank you. I have a card from Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon. My name is Herbert Milano. Chair Najarian, members of the Redevelopment Agency, and city staff. In the past couple of weeks, I have brought information concerning my opinion about the Americana and how it came about. Today, I want to clarify why I had a particular opposition to the project. My opposition to the project was based on the cost to the city, the significant size of the subsidy, the loss of Centennial Park, and the lack of adherence to a strategic plan that the city set at a very high expense in 1996. Now, subsequently to the approval, a challenge was made by General Growth to the environmental impact report, and they had, of course, multiple grounds for challenging it, including, the issues about traffic, and Caruso Affiliated eventually won. But it so happens that the city of Santa Anita was pretty much under the very same circumstances, a subsidy, a developer coming in to create a mall next to another one, and Westfield Mall challenged them, and in this case, the opposite happened. Westfield Mall won against Caruso Affiliated last month. The irony to me is that my issues were about parkland, and Santa Anita has a lot more parkland and open spaces than the city of Glendale has, especially in the area where the Americana is. And because there has been such a prolonged resistance to really building a proper urban park in large urban areas of open green space, I decided to challenge the downtown specific plan. Because the downtown specific plan on page 4.2-5 states very much the same things that I stated earlier concerning the deficiency in parkland in Glendale that needed to be addressed as a program EIR. So I decided to challenge the downtown specific plan the only way available to us by the California Constitution, which is in a court of law. And my main objective, and I had offered, and probably you're not privy to this, Mr. Draymond or Mr. Najarian, but I did make an offer during the mandatory mediation that I would drop my lawsuit if the city would simply abide by its commitment to the upper parkland, mainly preserve at least 2.5 acres of open space surrounding Central Park. That was it. I wasn't asking for you to change policy. I wasn't asking you to, or mandate you to do anything. Basically, comply with the original goals, and the goals were originally 7 acres. Here I'm saying there's 2.5 acres surrounding Central Park. I will drop my lawsuit if we just simply adhere to those objectives. The city refused. And during the lawsuit, I still continued to make that particular offer, yet the city continued. And so my objective has always been to how to preserve the last major open space, especially in this area that is being developed the way it is. That the last best opportunity for us to preserve up to 3.5 acres of parkland, urban central parkland, for all of Glendale, meaning to create the true type of synergy that we need for a musical venue, artistic venues, places for 5,000 people to gather, to make it a vibrant place for the city. And it's been my passion for a very long time, and it is the only reason why I decided to follow through with this particular lawsuit. So, gentlemen, I just want you to know that what my motives have always been, and it's been precisely that. Now, some people have come before you to state that perhaps it wasn't justified, because we lost the first part of the lawsuit. But, just because someone loses a lawsuit doesn't mean that it wasn't, that the original intent wasn't justified. After all, we have our whole legal setup such that we have courts of appeal and the Supreme Court that eventually reverses other court decisions. So I just wanted you to keep in mind that the last great open space that we have, especially, an area that is adjunct to the redevelopment area, an area that is part of the downtown specific plan, needs to be addressed in the way that we best can provide for the population of Glendale. And if we do not take advantage of that, we'll regret it for decades to come. And it is my hope that this City Council will look again very hard at the opportunity that we have, that we won't have for 100 years or more, to create for Glendale something truly unique and special. And it is my hope that you at least follow your hearts with regard to that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quintero.
We haven't had a report or update on the Central Park, on the senior center.
Next week.
It's next week? Okay.
Yes, it'll be coming next week
To the redevelopment agency or city council?
to both.
It's joint.
It's joint. It's a joint. It'll be coming in with a full design package, but also given some budgetary issues with some design options for the agency and council if you so choose to go a different path.
Okay, good. Ms. Van Meiden.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the agency, I would just like to remind the agency as well as Mr. Milano that confidential settlement offers that are made in a litigation are protected by the Evidence Code from dissemination, Evidence Code Section 1152, and I would admonish anyone from having discussions that were made during a confidential settlement conference.
With that legal warning, let's move on then to the next item. And that was the last card I had, so oral communications is closed. Let's move to item 6.
Item 6 on the business agenda at 6A is a public hearing, Director of Development Services regarding parking exception for Orbis Education Services to be located at 111 North Maryland Avenue, 52 spaces. At 6A is a motion approving parking exception, subject to comments and conditions from the agency.
This is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing and go to Mr. Lansing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, this is a request for a parking exception. The school wishes to lease about 7,200 square feet. They will use about 2,500 of that for classroom space. Under our current code, that would require an additional 52 spaces. However, because of the way the school plans to operate, they don't believe that they'll have any more than 24 students and maybe 4 to 6 faculty and administrative staff in the building at any one time. There's about a 3-hour turnover. So it's very similar to the prior office use that was there. This is a third-floor space in the exchange. The applicant has agreed to purchase key cards for the students and administrative staff, and they would then provide those for usage. Staff is recommending approval of this. Would like to note one thing, that Orbis has entered into a collaborative agreement with the Glendale Adventist Medical Center to provide up to 72 licensed nurses each year, beginning in 2009. So they would train here at Orbis and then go over to the hospital. Again, staff is recommending approval. One note on the noticing for this hearing, the site was posted with a correct date and time. However, the location was listed as the MSB hearing room. We have posted that building to send anybody over here, and consulting with the city attorney, I believe that the noticing is valid, but wanted to make you aware of that. With that, the property owner, the school, and I think representatives from the hospital are all here if you have any questions.
Are we okay with the notice issue, Ms. Van?
Yes, we are. We checked on that. All the Brown Act noticing was all appropriate, as well as all the other noticing that occurred. The time and the date are correct, as is often the case. Sometimes meetings need to be relocated, and so those individuals that happen to go to the MSB were directed to come to this location.
Okay. Mr. Lansing, is there anything else in the staff presentation that we need to know before we go to the speakers?
I don't think so. If you'd like the speakers.
Okay. Then we'll go to the public. The first speaker is Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon. My name is Herbert Milano. Mr. Najjar, members of the agency, and city staff. In the past, whenever we had requests for parking variances in this particular part of the city, I come before you to request that a study be made concerning the availability of on-street parking for the neighborhood that is between Brand and Glendale Avenue, and that is bordered by the 134 freeway and Colorado. The reason that I've been requesting that is that we should have, I believe, a clear evaluation as to how the residences would be impacted or have been impacted so far with regard to all the variances that have been given in years past. I am personally not opposed to a particular project such as this one or a particular move of a school to this area. I simply want to make sure that when this agency evaluates any variances, that we have a clear objective, or at least a measurable objective, of the impact that it might have on the local residents. As you know, I own property there, and I'm very concerned about the significant lack of available on-street parking for guests primarily, and the difficulty in finding that type of open space, especially in the evening. So, as I expect future variances requests will come before you, that we should have a study by Public Works concerning the situation of on-street parking in the area that I just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jody Parrish.
Good afternoon. My name is Jody Parrish. I'm the Employment Manager in Human Resources at Glendale Adventist Medical Center. I also brought with me Victoria Nisu, who is our clinical recruiter and is also a registered nurse, and she will be the liaison between the Orbis program and Glendale Adventist. Both Kim Milstein and our Associate VP of Nursing, Gwen Matthews, Gwen Matthews, our Senior VP of Nursing, would very much have liked to been here today, but Kim is a little busy having a baby, and Gwen is out due to a family emergency, so I'm here representing Glendale Adventist. Glendale Adventist Medical Center strongly supports the Orbis program. This will not interfere with any RN rotations we currently have with the Glendale College or the College of the Canyons. We are able to accommodate all of these great nursing programs. The Orbis program would be the first accelerated bachelor nursing program in the local area. Being able to offer this local program to our community, we will be able to increase our chances of keeping these RNs in our area, which will be able to help the critical need all of the local hospitals are facing to have more wants for bachelor's prepared nurses. Currently at Glendale Adventist, we have 65 full-time RN open positions, and this is during our slower census time, which is during the summer months. We are continuing to build and expand to meet our community's healthcare needs. In doing this, our need for nurses also continues to grow. This opens the door to a wide variety of career opportunities for nurses to advance and grow with the collaboration with the Orbis program. With the Orbis program in the community, we will be better prepared to fill these critical needs during this nursing shortage that all of our hospitals are experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a card from Eric Ashton with the footnote that he will speak if there's any questions. Correct, Mr. Ashton? Okay. Any questions of Mr. Ashton?
Well, maybe not of Mr. Ashton, but someone. I'm just curious whether most of the training will take place in the evening or during the day, or both, and what percentage.
Hi, my name is Dan Briggs. I'm the Chief Executive with Orbis Education, and the way the program is designed is to facilitate training at both the medical center for the clinical side of nursing, and the training in the classroom activity itself will happen between the days and the early evenings, depending on when class times will be specific to the individual program that's going on at that time. So there will be some mixture of both.
And that'll be Monday through Thursday or Friday?
Monday through Friday, with the exception of occasional Saturday and a Sunday.
Okay. And how many students do you think would be present at any one time?
There should be 24 students in a classroom at any one time, as well as somewhere between 3 to 6 faculty members as well.
Okay. And then finally, I mean, there's an awful lot of space throughout the city that's available. What made you choose this particular location?
This location gave us the opportunity to give our students the experience that they need to really get a clinical education in nursing. Because of the amount of space you need just to do a simulation for nursing, as well as the classroom activity. Additionally, we needed separate space for computer activity for these students. It gave us all of the accolades that we needed, as well as giving the students themselves a community environment that very much mimics a college campus environment, as well as some of the local restaurants and support services that are located in that facility.
Okay. And so Orbis is operating this program somewhere else in Los Angeles and Southern California?
We currently have campuses open, and we do an affiliation with the University of Oklahoma, and we do that program in San Diego right now in affiliation with Sharp Medical Center. We're doing it here in affiliation with Glendale, and then we're doing it in Las Vegas, Nevada in affiliation with St. Rose Dominican Hospital.
Okay. And so have you recruited the students so far? Or in other words, how much of an impact will you have 24 students the first?
Yes, we were approved to get a nursing program approved in the state. You have to go through the Board of Registered Nurses. We are approved by the state, as well as the local community and the higher education committee. We currently have 24 students that will be starting in August of this year. Those students will be facilitated in some temporary locations we have set up through Glendale Adventist Medical Center.
And what's going to be the maximum amount of students that you would have in this facility?
Because of the design of the program and the way it cycles through, the maximum number of students that will be present in the facility at any one time would be 24. We will have a total of approximately 24 to 48 students that start 3 times per year.
But I guess
the
what I'm
facility
asking,
itself is 24.
Right, what I meant was 2 years from now, if there's even more of a demand, are you going to up that 72 students or 100 and...
If we up our goal is to address the nursing community in Glendale to try and increase the capacity of the program in affiliation with both Glendale Adventist Medical Center as well as other facilities in the community. If need be, we are positioned to increase the number of space or the amount of space we will need to teach out more programs if the demand is there. So
At this location?
Either at this location or we may have to go to an alternate site if there's not sufficient space to keep the program open with this many students. For example, if we have to double or triple our space, we may have to look for alternate space to teach those students, and we're more than willing to do that.
So 24 is the max that you're going to have here?
That's the maximum number of students we will have in that facility at any one classroom activity.
2 years from now, 3 years from now, there'll still only be 24?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I have no questions. That was actually my main concern, too, was the numbers involved and how it may or may not expand, and if it expanded, what we were looking at. But Councilmember Quintero already covered that ground.
And I have a few questions. I'm sorry that I didn't speak up earlier before you turned around. Okay. With regard to the 24 students, I guess the educational term is their cohorts of 24. 3 of them, which would total the 72 once you're fully up and running. Will there be a back-to-back switchover between the first group and the second group? In other words, 9 to 12 and then 12 to 3, so that we will have essentially 48 students in the garage
Switchovers period.
switching over and all that, or is there a gap that would...
Generally, in theory, you could, but it's highly unlikely. For example, in San Diego, we currently have 300 students, and we don't run into that issue. And generally, what you're looking at here is the 24 students may be in for a test. Those 24 students would then finish their test, leave the facility, perhaps go to a hospital or be out. Generally, 2 hours later, another group of 24 would come in either for testing or for clinical experience, because inside the building there will be clinical training going on. So each one of those and each clinical experience is a cohort of 8. So on the clinical side, you're only going to have 8 students in there doing that clinical training, and those will go in rotations generally once every 2 hours.
Okay. I see that the 2 garages in which the parking may be reserved are the exchange or the marketplace. I would personally like to see the exchange garage being used. I think we're loading some extra uses onto the marketplace with the BPSS building, as well as the Armenian Society, as well as others. So to the extent that there's availability in the exchange, it would be my preference that they use the exchange. Of course, that's I think the closest to the school. It's
Correct.
essentially the same structure or immediately adjacent. Does the timing of the classes and your residences of your students in any way make it amenable to provide transit passes in lieu of parking, and to offer an incentive for students who use a transit pass?
I would have to defer. My assumption would be yes. Based on where the location of the building is, that transit would be an option for those students who can, I would assume, get the transit line.
It would be my idea, and it's not a new idea, but other businesses offer incentives, many times purchasing the transit pass, and depending on its cost, actually adding an incentive on top of that to get the students to use transit when available. I think that would be a good idea to make it available to those who can use it.
Fully amenable to that. Matter of fact, Glendale Adventist has even talked about courier services back to the hospital for those students that have to go back for their clinical rotations as well.
So that would be definitely something I'd
Totally
like
amenable to that, yes.
to look into. Is the school going to subsidize the parking? Are you going to be paying it for the
We will be
students?
subsidizing it with the students. The students will pay a fee for the parking, but a lot of it will be subsidized by Orbis.
Okay. And obviously, the first speaker raised a concern that we all share, and that is that students will perhaps find it more convenient to park on the street rather than get into the garage and drive up several levels. Speaking of several levels, I'd like the parking to be placed at the top for the students, and leave the lower levels open for the retail customers. I think that should be
We have no objection to that at all. As far as the street parking goes, I think what you're going to find with this group of students, because the Orbis students, or the accelerated bachelor's program that Jody mentioned from Adventist, these are students who are not your traditional students. These are generally, the average age of our student is 28. They're looking for second career. These are people who have an existing bachelor's degree, so they're very time conscious. So my guess is and what we've seen is, they're looking for a spot that's convenient, less than a spot that they can just find on the street. So for them, they're looking to get into school, get out of school as quickly as possible, because most of them either have a second job or other activities which are occupying too much of their time.
But I don't want them to be tempted with that street parking that may occur once in a while and say, this is much quicker than taking the elevator to the garage and all that. So that's something we'd really like
And
to
part of the
emphasize.
design of the program is to make sure that they're getting the passes, so the reality, the convenience would be in the parking garage more so than the street.
Anyone have any other questions? Any other questions of staff or any of the speakers? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a request for parking exception for 52 spaces. Any further discussion?
Well, before I move 6A1, let me say I do think that this type of use is ideal for some of the office space we have in the city of Glendale. I don't particularly think it's going to impact the parking situation in the surrounding neighborhoods, and I think this will be a boost to some of the restaurants and shops at the exchange. Hopefully someone will stop for lunch before the training or for dinner afterwards. So overall, it's on the third floor of the building, I believe. Yeah, on the third floor of the building. I think this will be a good use, and I do encourage, like Mr. Najarian mentioned, I do encourage the school to try to offer options in terms of some public transportation, rather than just not only offer options, but have an incentive if they're willing to take an MTA bus, if they happen to live near near a stop or even our Glendale B line if they're Glendale residents. But overall, I think this is a good use. And we certainly at the national, well, state and national level, certainly need registered nurses, and someone with a bachelor's degree and an RN, I think, is an ideal candidate for that industry. So I will move 6A1.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Van Muyden?
Prior to adopting the motion or voting on the motion, is it the agency's preference to modify Condition 2 to respond to your comments, and that were...
Those were going to be my comments anyway, Mr. Chair, that I'd like to see the comments as many of them as possible as conditions. Possible. The one exception in my mind is the idea of incentives related to transit passes and so on. I don't know that we can require that, but I would like to see that as a strong request that they make every opportunity to do that. The rest I would see as conditions. For example, using the top level and so on.
I'll incorporate that in the motion, Mr. Najarian's comment and Mr. Drain's comments.
The wording that I used was encourage all faculties, students, and staff to obtain and use transit passes.
Yes.
Or best efforts, so...
Okay, you can work out the thank you.
And I will second that. I would just like to add, since I didn't make comments before, that although I do support this as the son of a many year long retired RN, I do support this and what you're doing. However, there is I think a limit to the amount of loading of these various parking structures before there is a spillover impact on the community. I don't think that we're there with this use and this enterprise and this facility, but it is something that personally I'm going to be taking a much tougher look at from here on. And with that, I will second this motion.
Thank you. Let's take roll, please.
Agency members Raymond?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver? Yusefian? Chairman Najarian?
Yes. Thank you. The item passes. What's left, Mr. Clerk?
Agency member or staff comments or new business?
Any comments, colleagues or staff? We have no new business. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
The agency is adjourned.